Krishna Kirtana Ganana Tanapano Premamritam Manidhi Dhiradhi
Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Salakaya Chaksuran Militanyena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manavistam Stavidanyena Bhutale Swayam Rupam Karamaya Didanti Swapadantikam. First of all, I offer my humble obeisances unto the lotus feet of my Diksha and Shiksha Guru, Nitya Lila Pravishta Om Vishnu Pad Asatarasata Sri Simad Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. And I offer my humble obeisances unto the lotus feet of my Shiksha and Sannyas Guru, Nitya Lila Pravishta Om Vishnu Pad Asatarasata Sri Simad Srila Bhaktivedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj. I offer my humble obeisances unto the lotus feet of my Shiksha Gurus, Srila Gaur Govinda Goswami Maharaj and Srila Bhakti Vigyan Bharti Goswami Maharaj. I offer my humble obeisances unto the Sri Rupanuga Guru Varga, Srila Bhakti Pragyan Keshav Goswami Maharaj, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Thakur Prabhupada, Srila Gaur Kishore Das Babaji, and Srila Bhakti Vinod Thakur. I offer my humble obeisances unto the lotus feet of Bhagavan Sri Krishna, the speaker of the Bhagavad Gita. I offer my humble obeisances unto the lotus feet of Sri Arjuna, the hearer of Bhagavad Gita. I offer my humble obeisances unto the lotus feet of Sri Bhagavad Gita. And I offer my humble obeisances unto the feet of all the great commentators, starting with the original Srila Sridhar Swami, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, Srila Baladev Vidyabhushan, Srila Bhakti Vinod Thakur, Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, Srila Bhaktivedanta Narayan Goswami, and Srila Bhakti Rakshak Sridhar Goswami Maharaj. And I offer my obeisances to all the Vaishnavas and Vaishnavis who are present here today, my Dandavat Pranam. So, we have discussed about the 5th chapter yesterday. We're following the narrative that is being driven by the 16 questions of Arjuna. There are 3 divisions of the Gita, the first 6 chapters, the last 6, and the middle 6. And the narrative is being driven by 16 questions. Those questions have been listed here in the 2nd chapter, 54th sloka by Srila Bhaktivedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj. The 5th question, Sannyasam Karmanam Krishna, which is the first verse of the 5th chapter. Which path is better, renunciation or selfless action, has been discussed. We did that yesterday. Now today we are on the 6th verse. And the 6th verse, or the 6th question, we're on the 6th question now. And the 6th question is, Yoyam Yogas Tvaya Prokta. That's the 6th chapter, 33rd verse. This path of yoga appears impractical due to the unsteady nature of the mind. So now, there's 29 verses in the 5th chapter. And Krishna speaks in the 28th chapter, the 27th and 28th, 27th and 28th chapter, he begins discussing yoga. Okay, start over. There are 29 verses in the 5th chapter. And in the 27th and 28th verse of the 5th chapter, Krishna starts speaking about yoga. And he gives this 2 verses, shutting out all external sense objects, keeping the eyes and vision concentrated between the 2 eyebrows, suspending the inward and outward breaths within the nostrils, thus controlling the mind, senses, and intelligence. The transcendentalist becomes free from desire, fear, and anger. One who is always in this state is certainly liberated. So he begins the discussion about yoga in these two verses. Now he will continue talking about yoga in the 6th chapter, up to the time of the 33rd verse in the 6th chapter, which is when Arjuna will now put this next question to him. This process doesn't seem practical to me because the mind is too unsteady. So Krishna is going to be discussing here in the 6th chapter how the qualities that one has to have to begin practicing the process of yoga. And we will explain this when we get to that point, which is a few verses in here. But first we'll listen to what Krishna has to say. One who is unattached to the fruits of his work and who works as he is obligated is in the renounced order of life, and he is the true mystic, not he who lights no fire and performs no work. So we learned in the 5th chapter that karma sannyasam and nishkam karma yoga, which is the two paths. In other words, when Arjuna asked that question, first you tell me to work, then you tell me to renounce work, what should I do? And Krishna is saying that actually both these things will lead to perfection. When one does Sankhya or Karma Sannyas Yoga, then he analyzes the material universe and he understands the root of the universe is Vishnu. Once he understands what the root of the universe is, he waters the root. But those who perform acts of devotion, Nishkam Karma Yoga, they directly start watering the root from the beginning. So both are coming to the same point. So now he's continuing that theme in this chapter. One who is unattached to the fruits of his work and who works as he is obligated is in the renounced order of life. He's karma sannyasa. He's performing inaction with inaction. We talked about that in the last chapter. Okay? And he is the true mystic, not he who lights no fire and performs no work. Yam sannyasam iti prahur yogam tam vidi pandava nyaha sannyasta na hriya sannyasta sankalpo yogi bhavati kaschana. What is called renunciation is the same as yoga, or linking oneself with the Supreme. For no one can become a yogi unless he renounces the desire for sense gratification. So now he's linking sannyas and works of devotion to yoga. Okay? For one who is a neophyte in the eightfold yoga system, work is said to be the means. And for one who has already attained to yoga, cessation of all material activities is said to be the means. So now he's introducing the concept of the eightfold yoga system. So there are 8 different divisions to Patanjali's yoga system as it is given in the Patanjali Sutras. Okay? It's one of the 6 darshans of the Vedas. So, first we begin with yam and niyam, which are rules and regulations that one has to perform, a certain mindset that one has to get into in order to be competent to execute yoga. Then, asana and pranayama. Asana is the different exercises that all of the yoga studios teach throughout America and the world. And the whole idea of doing asana is to make the body so lithe and limber and free of any kind of disease or any kind of discomfort that one can sit in the Padmasana, or the full lotus position, for hours and hours and hours while he meditates. So all this Hatha Yoga activity is simply to prepare one. And then the pranayam, or the alternate nostril breathing and other breathing exercises that are performed are meant to balance all the airs in the body. Okay? So you have those asanas that are performed, and the different asanas are used in order to make all of the different muscles and nerves in the entire body and the bones so flexible and so healthy that one won't catch any disease. There is one particular Kurmasasana where one sits in a lotus position, then leans back, arches the back, puts the head, the tip of the crown of the head on the ground while the back is arched, and holds on to the feet. And what happens is it pulls open the vagus nerve from a Western scientific perspective. And when the vagus nerve is open, the respiratory system is clear. I've stopped so many asthma attacks by this. So effective. Excellent system for increasing respiratory functions by opening up the vagus nerve and freeing the respiratory functions in the lungs. So each one of them has some purpose. There's one for the kidneys, one for the lungs, one for the brain, etc., etc., etc. And all these have medical implications, which are correlated with the Ayurvedic science of medicine. And so the asanas are there, and then the pranayama. There are 5 different airs in the body. Okay, there's one air in the Muladhara and Swadhisthana chakra area called the Apanvat, because that air runs through the colon. Okay, and it pushes everything down. Pushes down the stool, the urine, the semen, the artav, the baby, the menstrual cycle. Everything that goes down and out the bottom is pushed by Apanvat. Then you have pran, which is the air that goes in and out of the lungs. Okay? Pranvat. So usually pran, although it comes in the lungs, is going upward. Okay? Expelled. You're expelling the carbon dioxide and you're inhaling the oxygen. So now, in the middle, between the Anhat chakra, which is the heart area where the pranvat is moving, and the Swadhisthana and Manipur chakras where the Apanvat is moving down, in the Manipur chakra, in the middle, where the small intestines are, that's where the Samanvat creates balance. It doesn't allow the Apanvat to come up. It doesn't allow the Pranvat to go down. If the Apanvat comes up, it can cause excess appetite in the stomach, it can cause vertigo, it can cause sleep disorders, it can cause heart palpitations. And if the pran goes down, it can cause dysentery, excessive menstrual bleeding. So to redirect the airs properly, to keep the airs from flowing into each other, pran and apan, then the middle, samanvat, is there to create equilibrium and balance so that these two airs go in the proper direction. Then there's udanvat, which is from the Vishuddha chakra, the neck, Agna chakra, and the Sahasra chakra, so these 3 chakras, the udanvat. It goes upward, the brain, the nervous system, etc. Okay? So you have these, and then the 5th one is called Vyanvat, which is similar to Wei Qi in Chinese medicine. Circulates throughout the body under the skin and creates an immunoprotective wall so that bacteria and viruses and things that try to enter into the body can be repelled by the Vyanvat. So these 5 airs have to be balanced. If the mind is going to be steady, for the process of meditation, the 5 airs have to be balanced. So this alternate nostril breathing, specifically through the left nostril, out the right, into the right, out the left, into the left, out the right, like this, back and forth, using these fingers to hold. So in this way, the airs achieve equilibrium. And when the airs achieve equilibrium, then the mind becomes peaceful. And your ability to meditate on Vishnu or the Brahman, whatever the particular lineage of yoga that you're in, it becomes easier. So the first 4 stages of the Eightfold System are just preparation. Preparation for actually performing yoga. Yama, niyama, asana, and pranayama. And yama, niyama are rules and regulations like being vegetarian, being celibate, going to sleep early, rising early, taking baths, and doing other things that are meant to keep the body healthy and fit and keep the mind pure, clean, and unaffected. And so these are all yama niyama, rules and regulations for preparing you to properly do asana, which are the exercises you do to create a healthy, limber, flexible body so you can sit in the Padmasana. Pranayama, which is the mechanical process of balancing the airs so that you can perform the first stage of meditation in the Eightfold System, which is the 5th stage called pratyahara. Pratyahara means to empty the mind. Empty the mind of all material conceptions. Now in Bhakti Yoga, we have a different approach. Srila Prabhupada used to give the example. If I have a glass with ink in it, and I pour out the ink, but I don't fill the glass with anything else, then in the inky atmosphere, ink can again come inside the glass. He said, but if I empty the glass of ink and then I fill it with a superior liquid like milk, then when the milk is in the glass, the ink cannot return. The process of Bhakti Yoga is the process of filling the mind with Krishna consciousness. You fill the mind and the intelligence and the consciousness with Krishna, and then what happens is automatically the mind is empty of all things material. But in this Ashtanga Yoga system, they try to achieve this platform of emptying the mind of material thoughts, called pratyahara. And then there's dharana. Now when the mind is empty, one should start trying to fix the mind on that emptiness with a view to start focusing on the object of the meditation, which is called dhyan. And in dhyan, depending on the particular yoga lineage you're in, you'll meditate either on Vishnu or on the Brahman, effulgence of Krishna. So that is called dhyan. So pratyahara, dharana, dhyan. And when dhyan, meditation, comes to the right stage of perfection, and the meditation is properly executed, then Vishnu will communicate with you within your heart, and this is called samadhi. So this is the Eightfold Yoga System. So Krishna is talking about it here. For one who is a neophyte in the Eightfold Yoga System, work is said to be the means. And for one who has already attained to yoga, cessation of all material activity is said to be the means. So now, who has attained yoga? Someone would be interested to know. Who is a person who's attained yoga or linking with the Supreme? So now Krishna explains it. A person is said to have attained to yoga when having renounced all material desires. He neither acts for sense gratification nor engages in fruitive activities. A man must elevate himself by his own mind and not degrade himself. The mind is the friend of the conditioned soul and his enemy as well. For him who has conquered the mind is the best of friends. But for one who has failed to do so, his very mind will be the greatest enemy. So Krishna begins the discussion about yoga talking about conquering the mind. This presages Arjuna's question in 633, where he says, this system of yoga appears to be unpracticable by me because it is too difficult to control the mind. So this is the statements that Krishna is making that is setting the scene and setting Arjuna up for asking this question. For one who has conquered the mind, the supersoul is already reached, for he has attained tranquility. To such a man, happiness and distress, heat and cold, honor and dishonor are all the same. A person is said to be established in self-realization and is called a yogi when he is fully satisfied by virtue of acquired knowledge and realization. Such a person is situated in transcendence and is self-controlled. He sees everything, whether it be pebbles, stones, or gold, as the same. Now this is very similar to Vidya Vinaya Sampane, that the wise man, the Pandita, Pandita Samadarshana, he has equal vision. He sees the learned and gentle Brahmin. He sees the elephant, the cow, the dog eater. He sees them all as spiritual beings with Vishnu, Paramatma, in their heart. That's what he sees. He doesn't see differences. He sees sameness in that they're all spiritual beings. A person is said to be still further advanced when he regards all the honest, well-wisher, friends, when he regards all. I'll restate that sentence because A person is said to be still further advanced when he regards all, the honest well-wisher, friends and enemies, the envious, the pious, the sinner, and those who are indifferent and impartial, with an equal mind. A transcendentalist should always try to concentrate his mind on the Supreme Self. He should live alone in a secluded place and should always carefully control the mind. He should be free from desires and feelings of possessiveness. So now Krishna is talking about the mood that a person has to be in order to approach the process of yoga properly, this Astanga Yoga, for the practice of Astanga Yoga. Now he's going to start giving instructions about how Ashtanga Yoga should be executed when one comes to the platform of having passed through Yam, Niyam, Asana, and Pranayam. He's beginning to utilize the pranayam to attain pratyahara and dharana. To practice yoga, one should go to a secluded place and should lay kusa grass on the ground and then cover it with deer skin and a soft cloth. So, the reason for using kusa grass and deer skin is because in the forest, in the Himalayas, or any sacred place where they would go to practice yoga, the snakes could come and could disturb one. But kusa grass keeps the body warm, so even if the ground is cold, one will not feel the cold. And deer skin wards off the snakes. So it creates a situation where both warmth and protection are created by having these two items to sit on. And then a soft cloth. The seat should neither be too high nor too low, and should be situated in a sacred place. Because in a sacred place, one will get better spiritual vibrations. Prabhupada talks about it in the purport. The yogi should then sit on it very firmly and should practice yoga by controlling the mind and the senses, purifying the heart and fixing the mind on one point. Now after this he's going to start describing more. Srila Prabhupada says in his purport that sacred place refers to places of pilgrimage. In India, the yogis, the transcendentalists, or the devotees all leave home and reside in sacred places such as Prayag, Mathura, Vrindavan, Rishikesh, and Hardwar, and in solitude practice yoga where the sacred rivers like the Yamuna and the Ganges flow. But often it is not possible, especially for Westerners. The so-called yoga societies in big cities may be successful in earning material benefits, but they are not at all suitable for the actual practice of yoga. So, should we do yoga? Should we do the Hatha Yoga exercises? On a morning walk one time, Srila Prabhupada saw someone at Venice Beach standing on his head, doing, what do they call it? Shirshasana, right? Shirshasana. So Srila Prabhupada pointed and he said, this is good. This is healthy for your body if you do these yoga exercises. So he had no objection to performing the yoga exercises for health benefits. He just wanted us to understand that the actual practice of Ashtanga Yoga is very different from what is being done in yoga studios across America today, where people are simply doing these exercises and thinking somehow they're yogis or yoginis. They're becoming proficient at performing the Hatha Yoga system, and that will help their body to be healthy, and it will also help their body to be very limber, flexible, etc. But one thing that they have to wonder and worry about if they're not understanding the entire process of the yoga system is that by doing this Ashtanga Yoga, doing this Hatha Yoga in particular, and doing the pranayam, they create a lot of powerful sexual energy, which the yogis transmute into meditation and into samadhi and realization. But if you don't practice that part of it, if you just do the exercises, without doing the meditations and without doing the focus on the service to Vishnu, then the result could be that you have an excessive appetite for sense pleasure. So, therefore, it is better to practice bhakti yoga, which is very simple. And specifically, the main feature of bhakti yoga, which is the chanting of the holy name. In the age of Kali Yuga, this process of chanting, Harinama, Harinama, Harinami Kevalam, Kalu Nasteva Nasteva Gatiranyata, this mantra, this chanting of the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, is the process by which we achieve spiritual perfection and spiritual realization in the age of Kali Yuga. In previous yugas, in Satya Yuga, we did the Astanga Yoga system because people lived to be 100,000 years old. Therefore, living for 100,000 years, you have the time and the opportunity to perfect Astanga Yoga. In Treta Yuga, they performed yajna, fire sacrifice. And this was very valuable and very easy to perform because they had the wealth to do it. There was a lot of gold involved and ghee and grains, and the Brahmins had to recite so many Sanskrit mantras, and all of them had to recite the mantras together in unison. And if one Brahmin out of the group of Brahmins misspoke one syllable of one mantra, then the whole sacrifice would be spoiled. So they practiced this for many, many, many hours so that they would get it exactly right. And if you've ever seen a group of Brahmins like from South India chanting, you see them very rhythmically reciting each symbol, each syllable, very, very careful, very, very precisely, because it has to be done in a perfect rhythmic pattern. But the chanting of the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra can be done in any shape, form, or manner. As long as you chant with the desire to achieve bhakti yoga, love and devotion, union with Krishna in devotion, then however you chant, wherever you chant, doesn't necessarily have to be in a secluded place or a sacred place. It could even be in the bathroom or in the car or anywhere you are. If you're chanting, you're making progress in spiritual life. So now, this discussion, okay, well, just to finish the sequence, in Dwapara Yuga, we have the worship of the deities in the temple, which is a very grand affair, and again requires a significant amount of paraphernalia of great value, which may be difficult to obtain in Kali Yuga, and also the question of proper cleanliness so that there's no offense. Yudhisthira Maharaj says in one place, and I think it's in the Bhagavatam or it may be in the Mahabharata, that he knew Kali Yuga began when he saw the first fly, because the fly sat on the stool and then it sat on the arti paraphernalia. And so then he could understand that now this is Kali Yuga because cleanliness will be impossible. The fly has contaminated the arti paraphernalia. So this is the level of cleanliness that is required. Is very, very deep. And so we do deity worship here in our temples, but it's much more simple and much more easy and much more accessible and doesn't have that kind of standard, although there is a standard of cleanliness. It's not quite up to the standard that there was during Dwapara Yuga. In Kali Yuga, this chanting specifically in public, in the streets, as a group, for the benefit of as many people as possible, is the Yuga Dharma, or the devotional process for the age to achieve enlightenment. and spiritual perfection. So chanting Hare Krishna is the process in Kali Yuga. Now, Krishna will further discuss what the yoga system is about. One should hold one's body, neck, and head erect in a straight line and stare steadily at the tip of the nose. This is why you practice all of these Hatha Yoga poses, to get the body perfectly situated so it can sit in this position without any difficulty for long periods of time. Thus, with an unagitated, subdued mind, devoid of fear, completely free from sex life, one should meditate upon me within the heart and make me, Krishna, the ultimate goal of life. So here Krishna is giving instruction as to what is the ultimate goal of life, what is the ultimate perfection, to meditate upon him, not on his Brahman effulgence, but on him personally as Vishnu. And Krishna continues to give more instruction. Srila Prabhupada makes a very important point about Krishna's statement that one should be free from sex desire. The vow of brahmacharya is meant to help one completely abstain from sex indulgence in work, and in words, and in mind. Work, words, and mind. At all times, under all circumstances, and in all places. No one can perform correct yoga practice through sex indulgence. Brahmacharya is taught, therefore, from childhood, when one has no knowledge of sex life. Children at the age of 5 are sent to the Gurukul, or the place of the spiritual master, and the master trains the young boys in the strict discipline of becoming brahmacharis. Without such practice, no one can make advancement in any yoga, whether it be dhyan, gyan, or bhakti. One who, however, follows the rules and regulations of married life, having sexual relationship only with his wife, and that also under regulation, is also considered a brahmachari. Such a restrained householder brahmachari may be accepted in the bhakti school, but the jnani and dhyani schools do not admit even householder brahmacharis. So, this is a very important and significant point. Srila Prabhupada talks about keeping the senses under control by taking one wife and being married. Srila Prabhupada always encouraged all of his disciples to act from a platform that they were comfortable in being on. One sannyasi had come once to Srila Prabhupada, and he had given up his sannyas, and he had gotten married. And he asked Srila Prabhupada that, will you reject me? Because Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu rejected Chota Haridas when he broke his vows by looking at a woman and talking with a woman. And this devotee was concerned. He said, are you going to reject me now like Haridas? And Srila Prabhupada said, Lord Chaitanya is God. He can save the whole world by himself. He said, but I need help. I need your help. Will you help me? Will you go with your wife and manage one temple and preach? So like this, Prabhupada was very pragmatic, very practical. And he said, from whatever position you're most comfortable, from that position you should practice devotional service. So here he's saying that in the bhakti school, a householder brahmachari is admitted. One can practice bhakti yoga, by being in a lawful wedded relationship and having a family. Srila Gaur Govinda Maharaj, who was, by all accounts, from anyone who spent time with him, a greatly advanced pure devotee, once was telling me about his life. And he said, when I was 16, my father died. And then I had to finish my schooling. And when I was 22, 6 years later, I had finished my college education. Now I was trained to be a teacher. And so I was going to be teaching in school. So then my mother asked me to get married. And I kept saying, no, I don't want to get married. I just want to be celibate. I don't want to be involved in a marriage. And I'll just teach in the school and practice bhakti. She said, no, no, no. Your father has died. You're the eldest son, so you have to get married. And you have to become the head of the family. So, Srila Gaur Govinda Maharaj said, in the Vedas it is stated that if the mother asks the son to do something, then he has to do it. The mother the son can never reject the order of the mother. He always has to accept. Of course, that depends on whether she's a good mother or not, from a Vedic perspective. But yes, you have to follow the order of the mother. And his mother was a great devotee. So she ordered him to get married. So he got married. So then I said to him, okay, you had to follow the order of your mother, so therefore you had to get married. I said, but then you didn't want to get married, but then you had 7 children. He said, yes. So he said, because when the wife asks for a child, it is instructed in the Vedas, you have to give the wife a child. So she asked me to give her children, I had to give her. So then I said, so what you're telling me is that you only had relations with your wife to have children? He said, yes. I had 7 children and I passed semen 7 times in my life. This is householder brahmachari. Now, it's not practicable so easily by Westerners, but you can understand the level of his purity, that he lived with a woman, he lived with the family, but he had complete control and restraint over his senses. He never misused his senses. So this is what Srila Prabhupada, when he says here, becoming a Grihastha Brahmachari, that's really what he's talking about. Although he did not strictly enforce that with all of his disciples, but he definitely encouraged them to live on that level. So now, Sri Krishna is going to talk more about the practice of yoga. Thus, practicing control of the body, Hatha Yoga, mind, pranayam, and activities, the mystic transcendentalist attains to the kingdom of God, or the abode of Krishna, by cessation of material existence. There is no possibility of one's becoming a yogi, O Arjuna, if one eats too much or eats too little, sleeps too much or does not sleep enough. He who is temperate in his habits of eating, sleeping, working, and recreation can mitigate all pains by practicing the yoga system. It was very interesting that Prabhupada uses the word recreation here. And we had asked Prabhupada one time, that, do Vaishnavas do sports? He said, yes, there are 3 sports for Vaishnavas. He said, swimming, wrestling, and kicking the ball. So these are the 3 things that Prabhupada said that we could do for recreation, for exercise. Of Of course, one shouldn't become so absorbed in recreation that he gives up all of his other responsibilities and duties, but certainly some recreation can be there. And practicing Hatha Yoga is also a form of recreation or exercise. When the yogi, by practice of yoga, disciplines his mental activities and becomes situated in transcendence, devoid of all material desires. When the yogi, by practice of yoga, disciplines his mental activities and becomes situated in transcendence, devoid of all material desires, he is said to have attained yoga. As a lamp in a windless place does not waver, so the transcendentalist whose mind is controlled remains always steady in his meditation on the transcendent self. The stage of perfection is called trance or samadhi. So we've discussed already what the stages are that you have to go through. Yam, niyam, asana, pranayam, then pratyahara, dharana, dhyan, pratyahara, dhyan, samadhi. Okay? So, like this, there are stages. So you come to dharana, dhyana, samadhi. Come to that place. So here he's saying, the stage of perfection is called trance or samadhi when one's mind is completely restrained from material mental activities by practice of yoga. This is characterized by one's ability to see the self by the pure mind and to relish and rejoice in the self. In that joyous state, one is situated in boundless transcendental happiness and enjoys himself through transcendental senses. Established thus, one never departs from the truth, and upon gaining this, he thinks there is no greater gain. Being situated in such a position, one is never shaken even in the midst of the greatest difficulty. This indeed is actual freedom from all miseries arising from material contact. So there's one verse in the Upanishads that Eshu Anuratma, how it talks about how the soul is floating on the five airs. Actually, the soul itself is not floating. We had discussed when we talked about being the soul and not the body in the second chapter, I gave a description about how the gross physical body exists. And then within the gross physical body is the subtle material or astral body, which is composed of the mind, the intelligence, and the false ego. Now these two bodies are connected by the 7 chakras. Those are the cords that bind the subtle material body and the gross material body together. Then, within the subtle material body is the soul, the Atma, okay? Now, the Anhat chakra, or the area of the heart, is where the soul is situated in the subtle body. But emanating, and these chakras, they connect. They connect from the subtle body to the gross. So in that area, the soul is residing. And then, if you read what Srila Prabhupada says, he often says the soul is in the area of the heart, meaning the Anhat chakra, in that area. Okay? So then, emanating from the soul is the consciousness. This is talked about in the 13th chapter, 34th verse of the Gita. Just as the sun is in one place in the universe and the sunshine is spread all over the universe, similarly, the soul is in one area of the body and the sunshine or the consciousness is spread all over the subtle and gross material body and extends out beyond the gross body, and that is known as the aura. Okay? So this consciousness floats. It's not the soul itself. That's always in the area of the heart, but the consciousness is either down here in the lower chakras or in the middle chakras or in the upper chakras. And so the process of yoga is to bring the consciousness up first here in the Agna chakra, because the Agna chakra is the intellect. And the intellect is like the software, the person who creates the software engineer. The intellect is like the software engineer. What the intellect does is it distinguishes between what is material and what is spiritual. What is the temporary material reality and what is the eternal spiritual reality? Because matter, gross matter, is never created nor destroyed. The matter that everything is composed of has no beginning or end. But matter, the forms of matter, are temporary. So matter is real. The material world is real. But the forms and situations are temporary. The soul, the spiritual energy, as opposed to the material energy, is also neither created nor destroyed. The soul and the spiritual energy are eternal. The difference is that not only is the energy or the substance eternal, but the form that the spiritual energy takes, the spirit soul takes, is also eternal. Both are eternal, form and substance, as opposed to the material energy, which is not created or destroyed, but the forms do not remain eternally. They change. So the intelligence is what can discriminate between the temporary material manifestations of form and the eternal manifestation of spiritual form and substance. The intelligence is the discriminator. The intelligence is the one that is able to see the difference between matter and spirit and who is the controller of both. Once the intelligence has done the discriminatory process, the intelligence can then direct the mind to focus on the conclusion that it has developed. And that once the mind is programmed by the intelligence, which is the software programmer, the mind is the software. Once the software, the mind is programmed, then it can run and maintain. That's why in the manifestation of the different elements in the primary creation between Mahavishnu and Durga, the intelligence is born of the mode of passion in relation to the false ego, and the mind is born in the mode of goodness. The mind is the maintainer, and the intelligence is the creator. It creates the program which the mind maintains. So here, he's talking about the ability to see the self by the pure mind and relish and rejoice in the self. The pure mind becomes uncontaminated by all material influences of the modes of material nature. And in that position, of Shuddha Sattva, pure goodness, he's able to understand everything as it is and focus only, meditating only on the Supreme. This is the beauty of the practice of yoga when it is done correctly. So now the consciousness is floating in the Agna chakra and then ultimately in the Sahasrara chakra, which is the place of bliss. And this is the Brahmabhuta stage, or the stage of understanding Brahman or localized Paramatma. It is not the stage of understanding Bhagavan Sri Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That will only come when you release yourself from the influence of one more subtle sheath that covers your soul within the subtle body. Within the subtle body, there's another sheath. It's called the koshas. And Prabhupada talks about it in the Krishna book that you were just reading in the prayers to the personified Vedas. There's Anamoya Kosh, then Manamoya Kosh, Pranamoya, Anamoya, Pranamoya, Manamoya, Vijnanamoya, and Anandamoya, 5 koshas. Anamoya Kosh is understanding the world through tactile senses, specifically taste. You see a baby, small baby. How does the baby understand the world? Everything in the mouth. This is Anamoya Kosh. Everything the baby puts in the mouth. He understands the world through the mouth, through tasting. This is Anamoya Kosh. Then when the baby, up to 2 years of age, the baby consciousness doesn't recognize that his body is separate from his mother's. He thinks that if he's not connected to his mother, then he's not complete, he's not whole. His completeness is in being with the mother. Somewhere around 2 years of age, he starts to realize that his identity is separate from his mother's. And that's when he says, no. This is when the child begins to say, no. No. I do. No. I won't. No. Now that no is now Pranamoya Kosh. He has now graduated from tasting, understanding the world through tactile senses, to asserting his identity. I am an individual and I can say no. So this is the next stage. Okay. Then he goes to school and he starts to assimilate material knowledge. This is Manamoya or Jnanamoya Kosh in the area of the heart. Okay. And now that knowledge is being developed. And then the next thing is Vijnanamoya Kosh, the discrimination between what is temporary material and what is eternal spiritual, and who's the controller of both. And then Anandamoya Kosh. So these koshas are present, these last two, Vijnanamoya and Anandamoya, mostly Anandamoya, are present in the stage of Bhav. Now, someone who's going through the process of Bhakti Yoga, starting with faith, okay, Shraddha, then Sadhu Sangha, association with sadhus, Bhajana Kriya, the practice of sadhana, devotional practices, 9 devotional practices, Anartha Nivritti, the removal of anarthas, or unwanted negative emotions. Then Nishtha, firm faith. Then Ruchi, taste. Then Asakti, attachment, and then Bhav. And that segue from Asakti to Bhav. One will drop all the other koshas except Anandamoya kosh, the bliss of Anandamoya kosh. This is why Bhav is there in between Asakti or attachment and prem, because there's still some subtle covering. There's ecstasy and pleasure and the enjoyment of that ecstasy and pleasure. Generally, no one will fall from Bhav. Although there was one notable case with Bharat Maharaj, but that was to teach us something, that don't become complacent in your practice. So, transcendental happiness and pleasure, boundless transcendental happiness and pleasure, is experienced here in the Anandamoya Kosh or the Sahasra Chakra. Okay? And this is where one experiences that spiritual bliss and pleasure. And when that's dropped completely, your spiritual form will be completely manifest. Your subtle body completely dissolved. There's no more material mind, no more material intelligence, no more false ego identification with the physical body or the subtle material mind. It will be in the false ego. That whole thing will be dissolved. This is explained in the 3rd canto, 25th chapter, verse 33. That the process of bhakti yoga dissolves the subtle body. So in this way, now we have this stage of Ananda. And Sri Krishna will talk about this later in the Bhagavad Gita, Brahma Bhuta Prasanatma. And Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu discusses this with Ramananda Roy, how this is not the highest stage, not the ultimate goal of life, to achieve Brahma Bhuta. And so, Krishna continues to talk about the mind. Yato yato nischalati manasa chanchalam astiram tatastato niyamayai atmanyeva vasham nayet. From wherever, from whatever and whenever, wherever, from whatever and wherever the mind wanders due to its flickering and unsteady nature, one must certainly withdraw it and bring it back under the control of the self. The yogi whose mind is fixed on me verily attains the highest happiness by virtue of his identity with Brahman. He is liberated, his mind is peaceful, and his passions are quieted, and he is freed from sin. So here, Krishna is saying that the identification is with the effulgence of Krishna, which is Brahman. Okay? Prabhupada quotes the verse from 1854, Brahma Bhuta Prasanatma. In the state of being, free from material contamination and situated in the transcendental service of the Lord, mad bhaktim labhate param, one can attain the highest goal. So that is only the first step. We don't deny that Brahma realization is a realization of God, but it is the impersonal realization of God's effulgence. Higher than that is the Paramatma, or all-pervasive form of Vishnu, and higher than that is Bhagavan, who is the Supreme Personality of Godhead in Braj. And so this is where we want to go. Steady in the self, being freed from all material contamination, The yogi achieves the highest perfectional stage of happiness in touch with the Supreme Consciousness. A true yogi observes me in all beings and also sees every being in me. Indeed, the self-realized man sees me everywhere. For one who sees me everywhere and sees everything in me, I am never lost, nor is he ever lost to me. The yogi who knows that I am the supersoul within all creatures are one. The yogi who knows that I, Krishna, and the supersoul within all creatures are one, worships me and remains always in me in all circumstances. So now Krishna is informing Arjuna that higher than worshiping Brahman, higher than worshiping Paramatma, Brahmeti, Paramatmeti, Bhagavaneti, worshiping me is the best thing. He is a perfect yogi who, by comparison to his own self, sees the true equality of all beings, both in their happiness and distress, O Arjuna. So now, Arjuna has heard Krishna discussing how the mind should be controlled in order to perform yoga. So now Arjuna, he's going to tell Krishna and ask a question. This is verse 33 of the 6th chapter. Yoyam yogas tvaya prokta samyena madhusudana etashaham napashyami chanchalatvat stitam stiram. Arjuna said, O Madhusudan, the system of yoga which you have summarized appears impractical and unendurable by me. For the mind is restless, chanchalatvat, restless and unsteady. Chanchalam hi mana Krishna, for the mind is restless, turbulent, obstinate, and very strong, O Krishna. And to subdue it is, it seems to me, more difficult than controlling the raging wind. So now Krishna answers Arjuna. This is the 6th question in the list of 16 questions that are driving the narrative of the Gita. So at the end of the 5th chapter, Krishna begins talking about yoga. He's explained the whole yoga system now to Arjuna. And now Arjuna has said, I can't do this. It's impractical and unendurable. So now Krishna is going to respond to Arjuna. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Asamshayam Mahabaho Mano Dur Nigraham Kalam Chalam Abhyasena Tukaunteya Vairagyena Cha Griyate. The blessed Lord said, O mighty armed son of Kunti, it is undoubtedly very difficult to curb the restless mind, but it is possible by constant practice and detachment. For one whose mind is unbridled, self-realization is difficult work. But he whose mind is controlled and who strives by right means is assured of success. That is my opinion. Then Arjuna asks another question. What is the destination of a man of faith who does not persevere, who in the beginning takes to the process of self-realization, but who later desists due to worldly mindedness and thus does not attain perfection in mysticism? Almighty armed Krishna, does not such a man being deviated from the path of transcendence, perish like a riven cloud with no position in any sphere? So Arjuna is concerned. I can't do yoga. I can try. You're telling me to do it, and I can try. But if I fail, then I've given up my material dharma, my material responsibilities to do this yoga. And now I'm doing the yoga, and I fail at doing the yoga. So now I'm like a riven cloud. I don't have any place. Neither in the material. I'm not successful materially. I haven't been successful spiritually. I am completely unsuccessful in everything. So what is my position? I have no position in any sphere. What will I be? What will happen? This is my doubt, O Krishna, and I ask you to dispel it completely. But for yourself, no one is to be found who can destroy this doubt. Now, Krishna tells him. The Blessed Lord said, Sri Bhagavan Uvacha, Partha Naiveha Namutra. The Blessed Lord said, O son of Pritha, a transcendentalist engaged in auspicious activities does not meet with destruction either in this world or the spiritual world. One who does good, my friend, is never overcome by evil. And later, Krishna will have Arjuna himself make this very pronouncement. My devotee is never destroyed. My devotee is never defeated. He makes this promise in the 9th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. The unsuccessful yogi, O Arjuna, after many, many years of enjoyment on the planets of the pious entities, is born into a family of righteous people, or into a family of rich aristocracy. Or he takes birth in a family of transcendentalists who are surely great in wisdom. Verily, such a birth is very rare in this world. So we see that a person may be born to a family of righteous people, like we see so many young today having devote children in this Krishna consciousness movement, and we see these young children to be very advanced in Krishna consciousness and taking up the practice of devotional service. I've seen the sons and daughters of many of my friends taking up bhakti yoga with great enthusiasm and vigor, my own son included, taking up the process, reading every day, performing service at the temple, doing things for developing his spiritual life. So we see that they're given another chance by being born in the family of devotees, or it says here, being born in the family of righteous people. Srila Prabhupada once said about us, he said, all you boys and girls had good mothers. He said, Prabhupada, our mothers eat meat and do this and do this. He said, no. You could not become devotees unless you had good mothers. So those of us who've come from the material world into the process of bhakti in this particular lifetime means that we were born to good mothers. And because of their righteousness, a family of righteous people, or in a family of rich aristocracy, like Alfred Ford. He was born in a very rich family. He had time to spend, and so he took up the practice of bhakti yoga. I have a friend in England who married a woman who's in the line of aristocracy, and she has dedicated her life now to Krishna consciousness. She has sufficient wealth that she doesn't have to work very hard in this world, but she spends her time worshiping the deities, offering flowers every day and fruits and things of this nature, because she got this opportunity. She met Srila Gurudev, she got initiated by him. So this is one of the ways, and then where he takes birth in a family of transcendentalists. Like Srila Prabhupada says here, fortunately, both our spiritual master, Om Vishnupad Sri Srimad Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj, and our humble self had the opportunity to take birth in such families by the grace of the Lord. And both of us were trained in the devotional service of the Lord from the very beginning of our lives. Later on, we met by the order of the Transcendental System. Now, unfortunately, some of my godbrothers who should know better try to use this to say that Prabhupada is a sadhana siddha, that he hadn't completed his bhakti in his previous life, and therefore he took birth in this world in a very high spiritual family, devotional family, and thus he made progress. But if you read the sentence correctly, what Srila Prabhupada says, both my spiritual master and my humble self had the opportunity. So is Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur also a sadhana siddha? Was he also forced to take birth here in this world? Or is he a nitya siddha? We all know that he's a nitya siddha. We all know that his father's a nitya siddha, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur. Srila Prabhupada will not come out directly and say, I am a nitya siddha. But by saying that both he and his guru were born in such a family, he's indicating, I am in the same platform as my Guru Maharaj. I am a nitya siddha. I descended here for that purpose. So we should understand this very clearly. On taking such a birth, he again revives the divine consciousness of his previous life, and he tries to make further progress in order to achieve complete success, O son of Kuru. My son and the sons and daughters of several of my godbrothers and godsisters are good examples of this. They didn't complete their bhakti in a previous life. They took birth and from in a devotional family, and from a young age, my son was 2 years old when he first said, I want to do arti, I want to do arti. This was an impression he had from a previous life. So he began doing arti. We've seen many young kids who could recite slokas, do arti, play mridanga, sing bhajans from a very early age. This is spiritual impressions on their spiritual consciousness that they brought with them. The sukriti of spiritual impressions that we perform in the practice of bhakti yoga are impressed upon our consciousness because the consciousness emanates from the soul and is eternal. And the sukriti, the bhakti, is eternal. So therefore, they are impressed there. The material talents that we develop, like playing the piano or cooking a meal or any such thing like that, are material talents that are impressed upon the subtle body, because at some point the subtle body will dissolve. So as material talents are temporary, the subtle body is also temporary. The subtle body will carry those talents from gross body to gross body, birth after birth, until you achieve a certain level of proficiency or perfection in the talent that you're pursuing. For instance, we asked Prabhupada, how did Ravi Shankar play the sitar so well? He said that he had been playing for 7 births. So after 7 births of playing the sitar, he achieved mastery over the process of playing that instrument. He became a master. So in any field of endeavor, any one of the opulences, whether it's mastering a talent like acting or singing or performing, playing with the sitar, or mastering knowledge, having great knowledge. There's people who were born in India, by the time they're 16 years old, they can recite all the Vedas, all the Puranas, all the Ramayana. I knew one man, he knew how to recite the entire Ramayana in all of the 18 languages of India. This is a gift. This is some, impression that he has, And of course, because it's spiritual, that's a spiritual impression. But there are people who have mundane knowledge, great mundane talent. And all of these knowledges and all of these things, they are impressed, material knowledges, all these material talents are impressed on the subtle material body, whereas the spiritual impressions are on the spiritual consciousness. On taking birth in such a family, he again revives the divine consciousness. By virtue of the divine consciousness of his previous life, he automatically becomes attracted to the yogic principles even without seeking them. Such an inquisitive transcendentalist striving for yoga stands always above the ritualistic principles of the scripture. But when the yogi engages himself with sincere endeavor in making further progress, being washed of all contaminations, then ultimately, after many, many births of practice, he attains the supreme goal. And Krishna is going to talk about that in the next chapter, the 7th chapter. A yogi is greater than the ascetic, greater than the empiricist, and greater than the fruit of worker. Therefore, Arjuna, in all circumstances, be a yogi. And then one of the most famous verses, because now, at the end of the 6th chapter, Krishna has now made the point. More than karma, more than jnana, more than karma mishra, more than jnana mishra, more than nishkam karma, more than karma sannyasa, more than anything else. The yogi is the greatest. And yoginam api sarvesham madgaten antaratmanam shradavan bhajate yomam same yuktutamo mata. And of all the yogis, he who always abides in me with great faith, madgaten antaratmanam, who's intimately united with me. How? Shradavan bhajate, worshipping me, bhajate, Shradavan, with great faith, in transcendental loving service, bhajate. He's most gaten antaratmanam, intimately united with me, and in yoga, and he is same yuktatamo mata. He is considered by me to be the highest of all yogis. This is the bhakti yogi. And this is the decision of Krishna, the final point that Krishna is making at the end of these 6 chapters in the first division of the Bhagavad Gita, which has been driven by the questions of Arjuna to this point, the narrative. This is his final conclusion, Krishna's final opinion. The yogi is more than the empiricist, the fruit of worker, the karmi. He's more than everybody. And of all the yogis, the one who is the bhakti yogi is the best yogi. So now we're set up to go to the next division, the 6 chapters on bhakti yoga, which will be explained by Krishna to Arjuna. And we'll see the different questions that Arjuna will ask. And we'll see how these are set up, and we will talk about these 6 chapters tomorrow and how they're set up and what each chapter is discussing and what understandings we're going to get from these 6 chapters on Bhakti Yoga in the middle of the Gita. So that ends the discourse on the 6th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare